Hillary Clinton supporter, Congressman Adam Schiff of California. He's also the top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman, thanks very much for joining us.
Good to be with you, Wolf.
All right, so you heard Donald Trump today say finally he believes that Barack Obama was born in the United States, period, he says. So is that enough?
No, it's not enough. It's certainly not enough to overcome 5 years of peddling this, I think, bigoted theory of his. And, it's interesting to watch how he does it. He did this several times in his interviews with you. He likes to say, some people say, and this is his way of propagating these racist theories, and it's appalling. And the fact that he now finds it expedient 60 days before the election to effectively replace one falsehood with another, the falsehood that the president wasn't born here with another falsehood that this all started with Hillary Clinton, is simply classic Trump, but it's appalling, and I don't think today ought to mitigate in any way 5 years of trying to call into question the legitimacy of the first black president.
So what else do you want him to do?
Well, I don't think there's much he can do. I'd certainly like to see him admit that he was peddling this bias for years and explain himself. He's not going to do that, and I think he made it worse today by, as I mentioned, replacing this fabrication with another one that Hillary Clinton got this whole thing started, when there's so much evidence that Donald Trump has been peddling this theory for years. So I'm not sure there's much he can do. And I find it insulting that he thinks that the American people are so incredulous that they would accept this very insincere about face on his part.
Hillary Clinton is coming off a pretty rough several days politically for her campaign. She lost her lead of the national polls over Donald Trump. It's neck and neck right now. Why is it this close?
I think at heart it's this close because we're a very deeply divided country, and I think in any presidential race recently and in the foreseeable future, you're going to have a very divided electorate. It's going to get close. It's going to tighten any time after Labor Day. That's just where we are in the United States. I do think it's going to open up again in Secretary Clinton's favor, but we're just too polarized a country right now for any candidate from either party to walk away with a presidential election.
As you know, there's the issue of trust out there. A lot of the voters say, according to all of the polls, simply can't trust Hillary Clinton. What can she do to change that?
Those of us that know the secretary and have such great confidence in her find it hard to understand those polls, and yet, we have seen those polls many times. I think she's doing the best that she can and tried to really win the confidence of the American people. But there is only so much you can do, and particularly in the last couple of months of an election when people's views have hardened somewhat. But I think she's making the case for why she's the best candidate, making the case for why she has been the most transparent. We have a candidate, for example, who won't even release their tax returns. And in light of this Newsweek article that Donald Trump has these business interests in Russia, in Turkey, in Azerbaijan, and elsewhere that could influence his decisions in the Oval Office, I think the level of transparency on Secretary Clinton's part contrasted with the opaque quality of what Donald Trump represents is a pretty persuasive comparison for voters.
He says he will have, if elected president, have a blind trust, hand over the business to his children and have nothing to do with it at all. Is that good enough for you?
No, and I don't think anybody really buys that. How is that supposed to work? His kids seek business as part of the Trump organization in Russia, and you have somebody in Donald Trump who is going to speak favorably about that Russian autocrat who's invading his neighbors merely because Putin says something nice about Donald Trump. How is he going to react if he finds out that Donald Trump has steered Russian millions or more to his own family? You can imagine how persuasive Donald Trump would find that as opposed to a simple compliment. There's simply no way, I think, to divorce himself unless he and the family cut their ties to this business, and there's no indication they're willing to do that. I find it interesting that even here, 60 days out, he's still peddling his own hotels. It tells you he can't let go of the business his personal wealth priority, even in the last throes of a presidential campaign.
Here's a source of concern for the Clinton campaign. CNN released battleground polls this week showing Trump with the lead. In Florida, for example, he's up by 3 points. In Ohio, he's up by 5 points. If Trump wins Florida and Ohio, potentially, he's on his way to the White House.
I don't think he's going to win Florida. I think Ohio will be very close. I think at the end of the day, Secretary Clinton will win that state, too. But these are battleground states. These are very tough states, and they will come down to the wire. I think you're going to see Secretary Clinton prevail, I hope, in both. But I feel very optimistic, in particular about Florida, and I also have a lot of optimism about Ohio. So this is, I think, what we expected to see early in the campaign. At some point, the polls were going to tighten. At some point, they were going to show Donald Trump ahead in certain states. But I'm hoping and I believe that this is going to be an aberration when we get to the fall, or further in the fall.
All right, Congressman, I want you to stay with us. We have more.